to fill in for Tucker on the show. For a reaction to the missile launch, we're now joined by a man who knows and understands the threat of North Korea. He is Harry Kassianis, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for National Interest. Harry, how worried should American interests be in the region? How worried should South Korea and Japan be?
Brian, this is the greatest threat of our lifetime. This is the #1 national security threat that the American people should be focused on. Now, you mentioned just a minute ago that this missile proves that the North Koreans are able to hit Guam. I would actually argue that the North Koreans are able to hit pretty much any U.S. base in Asia, South Korea, Japan, and more than likely the U.S. homeland in a very crude capability. We have to keep in mind those last 2 ICBM tests they did in the summer proved that they have the range to hit the United States. Now, we're a little weary in terms of knowing if the telemetry works, if the guidance works, if the heat shield that would actually bring down the warhead on a city all works. But if you put together all the different news reports, it looks like they're pretty close in getting there. So we have to watch this very carefully, and the president needs to respond with the toughest sanctions possible.
I know right now we're looking at a lot of sanctions and some restrictions, but clearly not enough to get their attention. I want to bring you to what General McMaster said.
People with backgrounds where they're affiliated with terrorist groups, they've known people, they've been to training camps, they've come in and out of Europe using migrant routes, all this sort of stuff. We've been warned about this for a long time. People like me have warned about these consequences for a very long time. But I just feel that we're just going to keep on seeing this same thing replay again and again.
I admire the British for keeping a stiff upper lip and continue to march on. But in a way, they need to show more emotion, that this will not stand in order for their leaders to understand they won't have a job if this continues.
Yes, this is a very important point. We in Britain, in particular, with the terrorist attacks we've had this year, I'm thinking of things like the Manchester Ariana Grande concert attack, we've now moved very swiftly from the attack, and mercifully, of course, in today's attack, no dead, but we have been moving very swiftly, even over the dead, to within 48 hours, getting on to the let's not look back in anger, John Lennon's Imagine, and so on. And it's almost as if we don't want to linger on what's happened, and we want to move on and pretend it didn't happen. And that, I think, is because politicians and others are very wary of the public on this, and maybe understandably so. But what they want not to happen is for the public to turn around and say, why is this happening to us? We didn't used to have, I mean, we had other forms of terrorism. We had the IRA terrorism. We never had Islamist terrorism like this in the past. Why is this happening now? And I think that the public should be asking those questions. We should be demanding answers. But our political leaders are very wary of that because they